Okay, in this video I'm going to show you a little something you might want to know to design your own game, and that would be how to keep score. So you may want some kind of score keeping, you know how Mario collects coins or Pac-Man eats whatever Pac-Man eats and your score goes up. So what we've got here is just a real basic game to start out with, and so you've got a player and a star. Now, one thing I want you to notice is you want to name these sprites something useful and not something terrible. So lots of times they try to name themselves like Sprite 1, Sprite 2, and that's hard. So if you click on the little information, little I right there, then you can change the name. So you could name it like cat or player or just whatever. So I'm going to call mine player, but anything is better than Sprite 1. That's awful. So now, right now in the player's brain, his scripts, I have lots of stuff just for motion. So like when they press up, do this. When they press down, when they press left. When the game starts, go to the center of the screen, face to the right, and always be changing your costume. So all that has nothing to do with scores, that's just your movement. Now, let's go look at the star. The star has some scripts in his brain. Things like when it's clicked, make sure it shows up. Now, the scary thing is anytime you're going to use a hide, once you hide something, it won't ever show back up, even when you start the game again. So if I'm going to be using a hide, I want to say when the game starts, show. So you'll show back up. And so when the game starts, the star will show itself, and then forever it'll change its costume again and again and again. Also, when the game starts, over and over again for all time, the star is going to be saying, if I'm touching the player, and that you can change to be different things. I selected player, then I will hide. So basically the star, anytime the player touches it, will go away. So let me demo when I run this. I'm going to be driving the cat around. He's kind of got bad handling, but boom. So the star eventually said, oh, I'm touching the player, so I will hide. Now I'm going to stop the game. I'm going to start the game again. I'm going to try that again. I'm going to start the game again, and the star shows back up. So, now what you want is you would like to be able to keep scoring, count how many stars that you have collected. Now the key to that is something called a variable that we have not talked about yet. Variables are in the data section down here. So when you click on data, then you can make a new variable. Now a variable sounds very sounds like algebra class, but what I want you to think about a variable is think about a variable as though it's a post-it note. And so you know how like you want to remember something, so you write it down, right? And so like if you were trying to keep track of how many people, I don't know, are gonna go to dinner with you, you might get a head count. You found 10, you put it on the post-it. Then somebody calls and says, oh, I want to go 2. You'd mark out that 10 on your post-it and change it to 11, but you have this place where you're going to remember something. That's all a variable is. Think about like a post-it that's going to help you remember something. Now, I'm going to give it a simple name like score. So now you have a variable named score. And there are tons of things. Now it gets all its own blocks. So you could say set the score to be 0. You could say change the score by 1. You could say, now right now it's being shown. If you didn't want it to be shown on the screen up here, you could hide it. But here's what's going to be interesting. A great thing to do here is I'm going to go to the player and his brain. When the green flag is clicked, I want to go to that score post-it note and make it be a 0 because there have been no scores. Now, when do I want to change that score? I want to change, the score should change anytime the star is touching the player. And right now we have that logic inside the star. So when I go to the star, I could say forever, you know, if you're touching the player, hide, but also change the score by 1. So the star says, anytime I touch the player, I'm going to disappear, and I'm going to change, I'm going to add 1 to the score. So let's just test that out. If I run it now, if you'll notice right here, the score is 0, and that star is right now over and over again saying, am I touching the player, am I touching the player, am I touching the player? He's not, and then all of a sudden he was, and if you'll notice that the score just changed by 1. Now, that's awesome. But what I would do if I were you, you probably want your game to have more things to collect. So here's what I would say. Once you have written the code in the star that makes it function, so the star has this logic that's all about, did I hit the player, hide, change the score? What I would do is I would go up here and use this duplicate tool, and I would say, hey, that's star. And when you duplicate him, you're going to duplicate his brain also. Now what's weird is when you duplicated him, he was right on top of the other one, you had to move him. And so I can move him around. You could also duplicate by right-clicking down here and saying duplicate. And so you could make, let's say we want 5 stars. Now, the great thing is, all of these stars, not only did you duplicate their visuals, you duplicated their costume, and you also duplicated all their code. So if I go click on each one of them, they all share the same code, and that code is awesome because it's waiting to be hit by the cat, or who we called player. So every single one of them, if you watch that score up here, every time that star touches a cat, that star hides himself and changes the score, and it's awesome. Now, I might have gotten ahead of myself, because you could also put an if statement about that score. So you could say, well, if the score is whatever. So let's do this. Let me show you real quick. If I went to star 1, they all have the same code, but I could add some code here. I could say, no, that's not what I want to do. I could say, basically, I want an if statement, which would be in control. I could say if. Now, I really want to talk about the score. I want to know if the score is equal to 5. Now, this gets a little crazy. We haven't used the green operator very much, but if you go to the green operator, see how it's the right size to fit in that if statement? I could say if one thing is equal to another. And really what I want is I want to say if the score is equal to 5, because that would mean I'm done. So I could say, well, if the score would be under data, and I just want just score is equal to, and then I can type in the number 5 here, and that would allow me to ask a question like, hey, am I done? Now, you could do all sorts of stuff. You could say when the score is equal to 5, you could move on to the next background, you could make the cat say something, you could just do whatever. Now, actually, what I want, I just changed my mind. I want the cat to talk to me and say, like, I won. So this if statement, right now I have it, notice I've got it in the star. Let me show you a little trick. I could drag it over to the cat, and it put it right there, which is not really what I wanted, but here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to take it, put it in this forever loop. So he's changing his costumes forever, and I just want to say, basically, and it's in a forever loop. You could say something like, you win, when that score is equal to 5. So, let's give this a run. Now it's 1, now it's 2, now it's 3, now it's 4. Oh, where'd the 5th one go? Well, hold on. Game malfunction. Let's try again. So now it's 1. Sweet. And now that is how you can kind of have a scoreboard in your game, and you could do it with all sorts of different approaches.